Hello and welcome to Mangasplaining, the show where we recommend great manga to folks who haven't read much manga before. Hosted by Dabaoki, David Brothers, Chip Zdarsky, and myself, Christopher Woodrow Butcher. Follow along with our show notes and reading list at mangasplaining.com. This week, we are reading a book that I picked. Hi, I'm Chris. It's called Goodbye Eri by Tatsuki Fujimoto. And the funny thing this week is I hadn't read this book before I suggested it for Chip to read. It was just a book I wanted to read. We did that a couple times this season. Why not? Why not just pick a book to read? So Goodbye Eri, Tatsuki Fujimoto, we have actually read. He's one of the few Mangasplaining subjects that has been on the podcast multiple times, let's say. We read his first standalone graphic novel, Look Back, on the podcast. And that was another one I picked where I was just like, I just heard that was good and wanted to read it. And we all liked it. It was a very touching story about art and about growing up and about wanting to change, the past and to change things that are out of our control. And then we thought, well, that's a little weird. We should probably have started with his first work, which is the ultra popular Chainsaw Man. And that was where we are today.
But it wasn't his first work. His first work was the very gross and very disturbing Fire Punch, which I hope we don't read because it's very disturbing.
Oh man, now it's going to be my pick when I finally.
Yeah, see, now I did it. Oh my god.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to send you a description of Fire Punch, and you'll be like, "Yeah, all right, I'll read that on the podcast." So it's a weird one. Anyway, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that another day. But yeah, so Goodbye Eri. We read Chainsaw Man. We thought that was good, but Look Back, I think we kind of loved maybe more. And that's, it's my take on how that podcast episode goes. You can listen to both of those episodes on our website at mangasplaining.com. So Fujimoto Sensei, he's doing Chainsaw Man, 11 volumes. It's a huge success. The announcement of the anime is coming. He decides he's going to take a little break. And he stops working on Chainsaw Man for like almost a year. And he puts out just one week, all of a sudden, boom, Look Back. Just a long graphic novel serialized in the online magazine, the Jump magazine. I can't remember which Jump magazine.
I think it was Jump Plus, right?
It was in Jump Plus online, yeah. All of a sudden, he just drops this bombshell of Look Back. And then, a month later, does the same thing again with Goodbye Eri. So this is in between the two courses or the two halves of Chainsaw Man. He's done 2 full-length original graphic novels, 200 pages. And then, 6 months later, 5 months later, jumps back on the Chainsaw Man bandwagon. So this is the second of those original experiments, let's say. And now that you know where it fits in, we've really gone back and forth on this one. We should have read Look Back and Goodbye Eri after Chainsaw Man. But, here we are. Here's what Goodbye Eri is all about. From the mad genius behind Chainsaw Man and Look Back comes a new story about coping with loss. Yuta's movie-making career started with a request from his mother to record her final moments. After her death, Yuta meets a mysterious girl named Eri who takes his life in new directions. The two begin creating a movie together, but Eri is harboring an explosive secret. I'm going to get to what the folks thought in just a second, but I got to say at this point, there is no real way for us to talk about this book without spoilers. Like sometimes we kind of dance around it, but if you are going to read Goodbye Eri, pause the podcast. Thank you for downloading it first. I appreciate it. Go and read it. It's on the Shonen Jump website. Links at mangasplaining.com. We'll just link right to it and then come back and listen because we can't not spoil this book. It's a 200-page short story. So all that out of the way, Chip, when I put this to you back in the suggestion period, I was just like, I don't know if this is any good, but it's by this guy that we liked, that you liked. I wanted to read it. I would love to know what you thought now going into it kind of blind.
it is very good.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm a fan of his work. Like he's 3 for 3 with me now. I can't wait to read Fire Punch or whatever it is.
Fire Punch.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a very kind of formalistic take by the way it's structured, with the four stack panels kind of all throughout, except for kind of big moments. I'm a sucker for those kind of limitations. And also, it does a lot of stuff with like kind of the there's like, we haven't seen a lot of this in manga. I've noticed the repeating of panels. Whereas that's a very American comics thing of the past 20 years, using repeating panels to create pauses, intentional kind of drawing out of a scene. And that's used a lot in here, and it's used really well. Yeah, no, I quite liked it. Yeah, that's my initial thought.
I want to go on now, David. Maybe do you want to talk a little bit? I know you've been thinking a lot about panel layout and pacing lately, because we don't usually congratulate each other on the podcast like this. But I did want to say congratulations on your first published, comics short story coming out real soon.
Oh yeah, thank you.
So I'm curious what you thought of it's a Newburn number 9.
Yeah, it starts in number 9.
Start at number 9. Go check it out. Image Comics, wherever comics are sold.
Nepotism works.
I am curious what you thought of this story and what you thought of the storytelling in particular that Chip sort of hinted at.
I like Chip. I'm a huge fan of widescreen storytelling, kind of pioneered by Brian Hitch in the late 90s, early 2000s. And this is basically that tuned to a small personal drama. It's very intentional about where the camera's pointed. It's not just about where the camera's pointed, but intentional about where the reader's looking, which I feel aren't necessarily the same thing. With the repeated panels that Chip was talking about, those were a big Brian Bendis on Daredevil thing. And it was kind of like a David Mamet pacing. You'd have your dialogue, you'd have the reaction shot, which you get in manga pretty frequently, but not quite in as stiffly formal a way as this. So the sense of time passing is actually much higher in this than it would be in something like Akira or Naruto, which have actual time skips, I would say.
Yeah.
There's so much detail given to every moment. And then the dinner scene when they're shooting with his dad and he's, leave my son alone, yada, 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 yada. It's 24 panels of the same angle, maybe 32 panels flipping through. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I've been reading, I just finished From Hell by Eddie Campbell and Alan Moore for the first time. And a big part of that is that it's on a 9-panel grid. Like Watchmen, it's a Western comics fetish. But the sense of pacing in that is, it's a drumbeat is how it feels because of the panel layout. And this is kind of similar, but this is more intimately paced, where I would say that From Hell is more inexorably paced. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the book?
I liked it. I don't know if I liked it as much as Look Back, but I thought it was interesting how it seemed to kind of be about Chainsaw Man and the act of telling stories. And there was something, it made me think of Asteroid City and something else. It'll come to me. But yeah, I thought it was a really interesting, thought-provoking read.
Thank you. Deb, what were your thoughts on Goodbye Area? I think you were maybe the only person that had read it or maybe I don't know. But what were your thoughts on rereading it for the podcast?
Well, I read it when they posted on the Shonen Jump app. There was big fanfare. It's a new story, go read it, right? And I think like you said, it came up pretty quickly after Look Back. And Look Back I liked a lot. I liked the storytelling, I liked the story. And for some reason, when I first read this, I thought, this is too similar. And it didn't move me as much. Like the proximity of it. And it's the same theme of, filmmaking and like unreliable narrators. You don't know what's real and what's not. And the thing about death and depicting, in a way that is not super straightforward. That, it's not like a straight tearjerker and it's not like a straight, the way that the story unrolls, right? It starts out a certain way. And then as you read more of it, you realize, oh, the mom wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's not airy. And oh, that's not like this. And wait, is she really a vampire? All this kind of stuff. And it kind of, it felt gimmicky at the time to me. I was because Look Back to me was so heartfelt. And so well done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this felt a little bit more like a kid, like in the book, like a kid doing an art film, like a university art film, just trying something new and trying to see
home movies.
Yeah, so how we can do stuff, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting storytelling experimentation. There's some fun with like digital, like, making the scene look blurry a little bit, or trying to depict that it's seen through a lens. There's a lot of formless, interesting things going on here. But I feel like story-wise, Look Back touched me more.
Mm. I think I agree with that.
Yeah.
Just getting the basic stuff out of the way. I actually really enjoyed Goodbye Eri, and I have to say it was a huge rug pull for me when we realized that the first sort of third of the book is very much an unreliable narrator, and the story is not about whatever I thought it was going to be. Whatever I thought it was going to be completely vacated my mind when it's revealed that actually this like touching thing about his mom was totally scripted and faked because his mom was kind of like a sociopath. And it was just like, oh, okay. And the reason is the format, the media. I think in this very specific version, the medium was the message for me. I have never read a manga with an unreliable narrator to this extent before. It's just not something that happens in manga. We looked at Goodbye Punpun, for example, and that's maybe the closest I can think to like having that kind of rug pull. Inio Asano, we sort of realized that like that God is narrating Punpun's, whoever God is, we find out, but whoever God is narrating Punpun's life, and that actually they're a pretty unreliable narrator at certain points. But it's always presented as like it's presented in a much more obvious way that there's an omniscient being a dick to Punpun in the book. So it's like, yeah, okay, I've got my defenses up a little bit about taking in what the narrator's saying and not necessarily falling for it. But in this, I was on board. It's just like, oh, this is like a sad thing. And all of a sudden it's like, oh no, she's actually maybe not great. She's still dying of, whatever leukemia or whatever she had. It's still super sad. And then I was a little bit more prepared for it with the second rug pull with Eri. But still, it just never. I didn't give enough credit to manga as a medium that it could fool me, surprise me in this way. And I would have if it was a film or if it was a prose short story. There'd be some distance there. But this is literally a Shonen Jump manga, and I was not expecting it to be what it was. And that's on me. That's my bad. And I think that is maybe where some of the power was for me. What do you guys think?
It's funny. At first, I thought it was a misstep. Like when I started reading this and we get to the point where the mom's like, please videotape me as I die kind of thing. I was just like, no, that's unbelievable. Like this loving mother wouldn't do that. And so I was kind of like, well, that's like, that felt to me like the creator basically doing like a forced kind of error. Like, oh, we got to get to point B, so I have to make her say this. And I was like, I didn't buy it. So when the rug got pulled out later on, I was just like, oh, he tricked me. He tricked me into thinking he was bad at his job, when in reality he was quite good at his job.
Well,
yeah, which was super funny.
It was pretty fun.
Yeah. I feel like I agree that like emotionally this didn't hit me the same way Look Back did. But I was actually kind of more impressed with the structure and those kind of formalist ideas that took place here. Like, yeah, I think it's a super, super smart book with interesting twists and turns and ideas about memory and about recording of memory, especially, and living forever. Because I've been thinking about that a lot lately in terms of like why people create art, why people tell stories, and like so much of it is kind of wrapped up in a weird way in terms of like immortality of living on, the memory of someone continuing past, and the fact that at the end Eri's like, she actually needs this to remember when she resets, when her brain resets. Like this is actually part of her living forever, is the recording of stuff. But it was super, super smart.
I almost I don't want to disagree that there was a rug pull, but I think that I saw the book differently from the beginning, so it didn't really feel like a rug pull when that happened.
Yeah, I think it was mean. I think that was supposed to be a reveal, but for me it was really like oh, this story isn't going to be what you think it's going to be about.
I see.
Kind of a situation.
Like, are you saying that Chris and I are suckers? There were suckers.
I mean,
we fell for
not
that.
suckers, but like
that's fine.
60% Rube. 60% Rube. That's all.
60. Wow, 60%.
feels like a
High
Canadian
Rube percent.
slight for some reason. I don't know.
It does a little bit, actually.
Yeah, Canadians are 60% Rube. I agree with that.
I watch a lot of wrestling. You guys have a horrible reputation in that.
It's true.
None of the polite Canadians made it to wrestling, so it's kind of my charts a little bit.
Yeah.
But as soon as she says, like, record me while I die, I feel like I was like, oh, that's not cool at all. Like, this is absolutely going to mess this child up. And I think because the story is so from his perspective, like, you see him on panel 2, and then he's basically off camera till he's an adult, you know? It's from his perspective and also, like, openly subjective about that perspective. Like, you watch the movie about his mom, then the explosion happens. You're like, oh, well, that kind of colors what came before. Like, it's clearly not 100% real, even though that would be, like, an interesting... I see why he would do that ending, you know? So what I was thinking was almost more... It was fun kind of looking through his eyes to see, like, even though his mom did a lot of horrible things, like, you see how he saw her and how he wanted to see her. Yeah. And that's almost, like Chip was saying about immortality, that's, like, sort of a very human thing, is you don't remember all the times you fought with your mom about things that were, like, fundamental to you or fundamental to her, you never came to grips with. You know, you want to remember her, like, smiling and, like, the good times. And I think that first movie did a great job of doing that. And then also dodging the bad times by throwing in something kind of goofy. So the story for me almost became about, like, when they say throw in some fantasy at the end, like they talk about how, like, including a vampire isn't fantasy, like that doesn't count. Like, a fantasy is something you really want to happen. Fantasy is something that comes from inside you, instead of being like, oh, like, now a Frankenstein's in it. It's like, no, do your story, but also know what it's about, and put that little twist in there to grab people. And I got a little, I didn't like this as much as Look Back, but I did get a little weepy during the scene where he does the peace sign, looking down at the ground, like her symbol while watching her movie, like, we did it. Yeah. Because that feels almost like his reaction after, if his first movie is Fire Punch, the second movie was Look Back. And Look Back is the one where people are like, oh my goodness, like, this guy's amazing. Like, all of his feelings, all of this stuff, all of these things that it's sparking inside me are incredible. While Fire Punch was the one where it's like, I don't really get it, and it's kind of too much, you know. I don't know if I want more of this. And it kind of mirrors the kids' movies in here a little bit. So I couldn't help but see it from, like, that kind of perspective, like a creator's perspective of embracing your subjectivity and kind of, like, letting yourself breathe through the work as well.
Yeah. It does seem autobiographical again in a way, the same way that Look Back did, but making it about film instead of comics gives him a little bit more distance as a creator, where it's like, oh, I did my first thing. Everybody was disgusted by it and thought it was stupid. All right, I'm going to do my second thing and you're all going to love it, because I've always known how to make you love it. And that wasn't what it was about for me. And then he does. The whole room's weeping. And I thought that was really an interesting metaphor.
So maybe we should definitely read, was it Fire Punch?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was referenced pretty heavily in Look Back as well.
Because if the first movie in this is reflective of Fire Punch, I love the first movie in this. like that's what kind of pulled me out. Like, afterwards when people were like, how could you do this? What's wrong with you? I'm just like, that's an awesome ending to the movie where your mom dies.
Yeah, right?
You walking away, slow-mo, hospital blowing up. Like, why everyone had a problem with that, I actually did not understand.
Oh, I totally get it.
I mean,
like,
it was probably...
It was supposed to be about your mom.
I guess, but I don't know. I felt like that was my disconnect from the culture.
I will say
very
that
North American.
It's a past worst manga pick for me, by the way.
Fire Punch?
Fire Punch?
Fire Punch was
Oh, we gotta read it.
Because it was so hard to read. I just couldn't get into it.
Well, we've read all the other ones.
Well, I know. But that was partly why I was pretty slow to get into Chainsaw Man. Because I thought, oh no, here we go again.
Yeah.
David, you were going to say something.
I mentioned Asteroid City earlier, and I'm not going to spoil it because I don't think Chip has seen it yet.
Not yet.
I haven't seen it yet either. I really want to see
it. If I say broadly, like kind of like it's about art and creation and living, like that kind of works.
Oh, spoilers.
But it uses the structure of like it's a movie that's like has to be a movie to tell the story that it's telling. And I think this is a comic that has to pretend to be a movie to tell the story that it's telling as well. And it uses like that kind of angle on its perspective in a really interesting way. It's sort of like how you'll see. I just watched like the Wes Anderson Simpsons episode, so that's what's like fresh in my mind. Like there are chapter breaks, that like Anderson does. And it kind of emphasizes the idea that you're watching a story. This is not necessarily true in the like literal sense, but it's like truthy. It's true-ish,
Yeah.
Sure.
And this is the same where we kind of flit in and out of reality. Like the vampire thing is like such an out there twist for a story like this, but you roll with it because you've been trained to accept the fantasy a little bit.
Yeah.
So for those of you who haven't read the book,
Even after we warned you.
Yeah.
Even after we warned you, because the vampire thing we did mention, and then there's vampires, does seem like a Simpsons joke. The Rand Corporation with the vampires. That's for David, who's been watching. Basically, there's a movie he creates in the book, the lead character creates in the book, and we find about his mom dying. And we find out that actually she set the whole movie up and she's not a very good person, but she wanted to have this like glowing remembrance of her that would sort of outlive her. And then he creates a second movie about Aerie, who helps him make the movie. We find out that wasn't really about like how she was in real life, but because it ends in a happier, like sadder way that is more what the audience expects, everyone's more appreciative of it, even though it's just as fake maybe as the first one was. And then there's, he's at the end of his life. He goes back to where it all started. And Aerie's still there, and you're not sure if it's a real sequence or if he's having a dream sequence because he's having a break from reality because he's having a rough time. And she's like, oh, yeah, no, I've always just been a vampire. I keep living and dying and living and dying. And you're like, what is going on with the ending of this? And it plays into some of the themes that are brought up about even realistic movies need a touch of fantasy to sort of kick them in the butt and keep them going kind of a thing. And it's well done, I think. I don't think any of us are like it was totally out of left field and doesn't really work. Although, some of us appreciate it to different degrees. I think maybe Deb didn't super love that part of the ending. And I know people online were complaining about it, but luckily this wasn't spoiled for me. So that's, just for the folks.
I like that it wasn't like a big thing. Like nothing physically changed about the character. She doesn't like bare her fangs or try to kill someone or something. It's just like she just is like a casual thing. Like, oh yeah, that's why I'm still young. I'm a vampire. Also, I figured it out because I'll hold this up to the screen. Vampire backwards is Aerie PM AV. So Aerie can only exist in the PM because she's a vampire and she's into AV club stuff.
AV has a slightly different subtext in Japan.
Wait. Hold that up again. Hold that up again, Chip. I'm going to get a screenshot for the...
Okay, yeah.
Hold on 1 second.
AV is short for adult video.
AV?
AV Club is completely different remit.
All right, hold on 1 second. There we go. Oh, very serious. Thank you.
I was just talking a lot about that actually in the show notes for Midoric.
Yeah.
Actually, because she's an AV actress. It's pretty funny.
All right.
But so have you read Bakemonogatari, Christopher? The Nisio-Isin light novel series turned manga, turned anime, turned like media franchise.
No, my friend is the translator on it, but no, I haven't read it.
Shame on you.
Didn't he run away screaming from it?
No. Co-translated it.
Yeah. Nisio-Isin is a difficult author, but part of the deal is the main character meets a vampire girl, and like they go to like a weird room and have like this whole encounter where he also becomes a vampire. So I thought of that during this quite a bit. And that's like probably one of the most mainstream, like it doesn't sound mainstream, but like it was very popular. If you want to rip something off, you would rip off Bakemonogatari. And they just kind of go for it in this. And I thought that was kind of cool. Like it's extra texture, extra subtext.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know it's probably besides the point, but I got to know you guys' opinions. Is the ending real? Did he really blow up the factory? Or is the ending the third movie actually? Where he shows up and Aerie's a vampire and he's telling a story again, except, maybe now the video equipment's a little bit cleaner. So you don't have that same, widescreen panel. You don't have that same viewing it through a lens filter on it. Is it real?
I mean, he doesn't blow it up because just logically it doesn't make sense. Like he didn't know. like when he was going there.
She was there.
Yeah, and also like he says, I never saw her again after that. Like that's a bit too much of a weird misdirect to be like, I never saw her again after that because I killed her 2 seconds later. Because I was looking at the page, I'm just like, nothing on the bag is kind of like really blowing much. Like he's not as affected by the blast, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Like it feels very artificial.
Mm-hmm.
But he's cool though. He's walking away from the explosion.
He's cool, but he's calm. Like he's calm in a weird way.
He's been added in post.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He does feel a little bit added in post. Yeah, you're
I
right.
think he's walking away with a feeling of self-actualization instead of like explosive victory.
Yeah.
Because the page before you mentioned like you never saw her again. Then he says, "You see, I finally figured it out. The reason I'd recut that film so many times." And he thinks of her saying it's missing a pinch of fantasy, don't you think? Like he's realizing like, oh, instead of dealing with my feelings, I kind of keep orbiting the same feelings over and over and over. And there's never a chance to put like a capstone on them. It's just kind of this open wound. So in the end, in his head, I think it's real, but real in like that figurative sense that stories are real.
I feel like also like, not to sound very much like I'm studying can jet fuel melt steel beams, but in the like looking at the drawing of the building blowing up, there are many explosions kind of happening at the same time. It feels like the end of Fight Club when everything's kind of blowing up in the skyline. So I don't think
You're being like one of those guys on the Rotten Tomatoes.
No, I'm just being a realist. I'm being a realist. I'm just telling you.
It's a movie. Can't it just be a movie?
I'm just telling you. The artist has intentions here, and the intention, I think, is that this is false.
Probably true.
Fair.
Actually, Christopher, I want to ask you because we went to the Chainsaw Man exhibit, and this is my opportunity to actually post that interview that I've put off. But do you remember what they said about why they used a movie theater theme in the exhibit?
Because they're super nerds in the best possible way. So the two fellows who put together the Tatsuki Fujimoto exhibition at Angoulême a couple of years ago were just huge fans of his work. And the exhibition came out, and Goodbye Eri and Look Back had just come out. But Goodbye Eri had come out so close to the exhibition they'd only had like one sort of small thing. But Look Back had a whole room where they completely replicated her room with like the bookshelf where she was working, like her Tokyo apartment, which was awesome to see, but also tons of stuff for Chainsaw Man and Fire Punch. And he had chosen the movie theme for that because Fujimoto himself sneaks a lot of and discusses or puts a lot of movie references into his work, Chainsaw Man in particular. And he's just a huge movie nerd. I think to the point, Deb, when we did the Chainsaw Man episode, I think we put the opening credits for Chainsaw Man in the episode show notes because the whole opening credits for Chainsaw Man are just different movie scenes from like famous movies with the Chainsaw Man characters acting them out. And that's the opening credits of the Chainsaw Man anime. So I think that they picked up on like that rolling theme of like movies and cinema and artificiality in his work. And so the exhibition itself, which, we have a ton of photos of that we can put up. We didn't last time because we were planning on doing it. And then, life gets away from you. Yeah, I think that they realized that that was a really good lens to look at his work as an exhibition as a whole from. So the whole thing is you enter into a movie theater lobby and then you can go into the different doors where the different movies are playing, and each movie is one of his works, which is crazy, actually, that they did this. And it looks gorgeous. Like they even got like the great, terrible, like theater lobby carpeting, and it had little symbols and icons from his work and stuff. Like it's actually one of the most thoroughly conceived manga exhibitions I've seen. They did an amazing, amazing job. So I think we'll put some of that up in the show notes, and we'll put some of it up on Mangasplaining Extra when this episode drops. I think that'd be really cool.
I always joke, I guess I have joked before, I should say, that Fire Punch Volume 2 is mostly film criticism.
Really?
And it's like only half a joke. Like there's so many conversations about movies and the different things that happen in movies in that specific volume that it really it made me laugh, I think.
Huh. How many volumes is Fire Punch?
7 volumes, I think.
Oh yeah, search me.
Because if we read it, I guess we should read volumes 1 and 2 then. I love that we went on this episode from Deb saying we could never read Fire Punch to Chip being like, all right, we're going to read at least 2 volumes. Wait, how long is it? Could we do all of them?
I should have known better.
You should have known better.
I clearly walked into this trap.
Fire Punch is maybe 5? Not too
No, we can read all 5.
So
long.
his mom in Goodbye Eri, the kid's mom asks him to film her last days and like gets him a cell phone. It seems like it's maybe for that purpose, but he keeps filming after that. Like, what does that mean to you guys? How do you feel about that fact?
I read it as he had, from a young age, started disassociating from the world, and he was only viewing it through a lens, like through his camera, which is, again, it feels like a commentary on young people in general to me, coming from Fujimoto sensei. But yeah, I feel like that he had just like backed up entirely and started viewing the world through his camera. And then when he got it shit on and became sort of a hikomori kind of a character and like a shut-in and ended up hanging out with Eri, it was even easier to back away from the rest of the world except through his camera lens. That's how I read it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That he had been shut out from his peers and from society.
Yeah. I agree with Christopher.
Yay!
Nice, you got one.
Rare win.
How about you, Deb? Did that feel striking to you at all? Like that he kept doing this thing that like his mom kind of pushed on him?
I think the way I think of it, like, because you mentioned a generational thing, I mean, this is a generation that grew up assuming that they could always film themselves without any special equipment, and that they would have a platform in which to share it, and they could be public, right? I mean, I'm a, I come from print journalism, and I went into blogging, and I write articles, and the next generation of journalists who are doing what I'm doing are all vloggers, and I can't do it. I can't put myself on camera, talking to a camera, showing people what I look like while I'm talking and thinking that's a good time.
It's self-conscious.
I don't like it at all. So, but then I see the other bloggers and bloggers doing it and they just love it. They're absolutely comfortable about it. And I look at it and go like, ooh, double chin there. And oh my goodness, you're the lighting. Oh, you look terrible. Oh, you sound awful.
Have you considered growing a beard? It hides the double chin really well.
Yeah.
The three of us who are not Deb are bearded.
Not fair.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. I didn't really think about that being the divide there. But when we were on our Mangasplaining trip together, that's actually why I did those fake Coke commercials with Chip. Which was like one of the things we put out on that, because it was like I could see which way the wind was blowing when it came to doing content. And it was like video was, I mean, it wasn't quite the shift to video that we all had to do that ended up bankrupting journalism. I'll link a couple things about that Adam, former of College Humor, has to say about that. But I do think that, especially through TikTok now, so much of content is video. And like, I don't know, Chip got a Substack, and the first thing he did was a major, beautiful video production of like Chip Class. You know what I mean? Like, video is an interesting medium, but it is absolutely a way to reach a lot of people. And I think, the people that are good at that now, shout out to, let's say, Omnibus Collector, or shout out to, there's a couple people that are really taking advantage of the format, and the TikTokers. Oh my God, the manga TikTokers. They do a great job. Like a really good job.
But it's also
to the point where it's like,
it's all consuming.
What?
It's all consuming. That's the only problem.
Yeah.
Like even the guys you mentioned, like I think they're every waking hour is thinking about the content for that, and like the need to actually post every day. Yeah, it's there's a lot going on there. It's hard.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to
make
do
it work.
Yeah.
But I ask about that because I think you're right. Like, it comes naturally to some people. And I think that for the kid, it's definitely his way of capturing precious moments, I would say. Even though, it's like his mom giving him a new chore. Like, there's something there that clicked with him and kept with him through adulthood. Like, he kept shooting video. And on the flip through, I realized that the only scenes that are, let's say, true, like objectively true, are when he shows the movie to his classmates. Like, you see the drawn out, like, over the shoulder view of the audience. Then it goes right back to the view, the cell phone view, let's say, even when he does the hand symbol.
Yeah.
And then so that's 2. And then when he meets Eri again, like, you lose the first person view. Like, it stops being something that he filmed and becomes something that's actually happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they've got those 2 full page panels at the end when he meets Eri again that are like reinforces that maybe it's not through a view, like through any viewfinder at all, because the shape of the panel changes. I thought that was actually really interesting, that there were several moments where the shape of the panel changed just after something was on video to sort of really pull it away from the seeing it through the viewfinder versus seeing it in real life. I like the sequence where the dad is like, "How was that? Was that a good take?"
Yeah.
That's one of the very few sequences where it goes from being videoed to not videoed back to back like that, but it's still the same sequence.
I think he's still on video.
Really,
I guess he mixes it up too much. Like for that to actually be a thing, I think, because like when he shows the movie to the school, like they're like full page shots of him running from the explosion that aren't in that format. He just uses it for emphasis, not necessarily to delineate between reality and the video.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But it does add like a bigger punch.
Yeah.
Like it makes it feel less like a subjective point of view in a way as well. I think you're like, oh, like there's different storytelling going on, but they're still just the same frame, just stacked one on top of each other, like double stacked. I know, like formally it's really interesting because the explosion at the end also, when he was a kid, the explosion happened after he ran away from the hospital. Here he walks away from his friend. Like he's not running from anything. He's just accepted things that are happening. I don't know. It's a nice comic to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is.
It also kind of like, I feel like this story, like I've read it on my phone and I'm reading it on iPad now. It is definitely a book to read in double page spreads.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about that. It goes back to, Chip, what you said about this being a formalist work, and then David, what you said about this having a drum beat, and I think it's manga decompression here in like a real way, where, talking about Watchmen or From Hell, those are 9-panel pages, which means that when you're reading, reading it page by page, it's actually 18 pages or 18 panels on a double page spread, whereas this is 8 panels on a double page spread. And this work was digital first, and you did read it a double page spread at a time, which with manga, isn't always the case. Like obviously, it's 2 pages in a magazine or a tankobon, but you theoretically could read it, sort of focus on one page and the other. This was on a screen, all 8 pages, and as you scroll through, it's always 8 pages. Always 8 panels, panels in the same spot. And when it does change up size wise a little bit, very different.
Jarring.
It's really striking. Yeah.
I'm looking at 92 and 93. 192, 193.
192, 193. At the very end, yeah.
Where she's looking in the opposite direction. He's looking, but then the opposite person is on the screen in the background. Pretty masterful.
Yeah.
And that's such a cinematic trick.
Yeah.
Like having that kind of layering, or maybe like a rear projection of something like that.
Yeah.
The Isn't That Beautiful page on 193 was one of my favorites in the book. I think because it gets to that idea of like, when you look back at art, like it's kind of like, oh, you did this. Like you did this and it was good. And look how amazing and beautiful that is, that we exist here at this specific point in time to experience this. And, on 192, she's saying, I'll remember you again and again. And it's like, you see the video version of her saying it to the real him while he looks shocked. And then on the next page, she looks happier almost in the video version because she has this video that she can source to tell her about herself. That's something else, a big part of this. And like, again, Chip's immortality point is really on target. It's about the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and each other. Like he wants to remember his mom to be a certain way, and his dad is like, holy crap, like you deserve that. And I am so jealous that you have that ability. Like that's something valuable. Eri recognizes that in him and basically pushes him, to do a cool thing. For as near as I can tell, like curiosity, like no reason at all. She's just like, oh, this is neat. I want to see what happens when I get this kind of attention.
I'm not even convinced Eri is real, honestly.
But she has a friend. Yeah, even if she's fake, like that's still a good bit of fantasy, because it's not just that she's a vampire. It's that she's a vampire that resets every 200 years and is totally cool about it. She's like the perfect vampire for this guy to get some character development.
Yeah.
Multiple times. Yeah. But her friend being like, wow, like that point of view, it was really cool. She was she had a bad temper and blah, 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 blah. But like, we were friends, and I liked remembering her in an over-idealized way.
Yeah, that's actually, I like that they made that part of the narrative. They made it part of the narrative rather than making it like a sub.
Yeah, they said the theme out loud.
Underneath the service. Yeah, they said the theme out loud, and it worked because you needed to hear the theme out loud to go into the last third of the book. Where it was like, yeah, where it was fantasy. Yeah, there's a lot to think about. I think I'm with you guys. I didn't maybe like this as much as Look Back because I think it didn't want me to feel as strongly about it as Look Back wanted me to feel about it as a story. But I think it's like a really excellent short story. I like that it has a couple of FU moments to the reader. Like, David and I may disagree, but I think that they are rug pulls for sure. I think that they are him saying like, "Oh, what'd you think you were reading?" a couple times.
I'm just in really smart, is what it is.
Yeah. 60% Rube.
Yeah, it must be a burden for you. So yeah, I think you guys are right. It is a fun manga to really think about, and I think that's cool. And I'm glad that I picked a manga that at least Chip liked, if no one else. So that's my final thought. What do you guys?
Everyone seemed to like it. They just maybe not as much.
I don't know.
Look Back.
Deb's on the fence.
I don't dislike it. It's just that out of the 3 that we read, it's probably my number 3. But the other 1 and 2 is very strong, so it's not a diss on it. I'm still bitter about it losing the Eisner, by the way. But whatever.
What did it lose to?
Yeah.
Shina's Journey? The Hayao Miyazaki
book?
book?
The Miyazaki. Okay, that's a good cover. I haven't read it though, so I can't call it past that.
It's okay. It's really nice. It's beautifully presented. They First Second did a beautiful job producing this book. It's just not that good of a story compared to Look Back.
Beautiful though. Yeah. I like that the only person that could knock Junji Ito out of winning an Eisner was actually Hayao Miyazaki.
Ooh, snap.
Because he'd gotten it for like 3 years in a row, and it was like, oh, Look Back's going to lose to Junji Ito again. And then Junji Ito didn't win because Miyazaki released, they released the second Miyazaki manga in English during his victory lap for his entire career. Like, good timing. Yeah. Good timing for a second.
Although I will say Junji Ito didn't seem to care.
Yeah, he's got enough.
I got 3 of these things. If I got 4, I'd get bookends, right? Whatever. But I have an Inkpot, so now that's the other end of the bookend. Like
Chip, you've got like 4 Eisners now. It's not cool anymore.
5.
Whoa.
5.
Whoa.
5 times. Love it.
We're not worthy. Oh my God.
Not to brag, just to correct the record.
Now I can run the 5 Timers Club Saturday Night Live sketch in the show notes.
Oh, hey, there you go.
Paul Simon and Steve Martin. That's perfect. Have you seen that, David? That's really funny.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's all the people that have hosted or been on Saturday Night Live 5 times all come back for one sketch to do cameos. And it's just like a powerhouse of famous 80s and 90s.
They've been doing it
comedians, actors, musicians.
Yeah, they've been doing it forever. Like they do another 5-timer skit every time someone enters the 5 Timers Club. So it just gets built. It just gets bigger and bigger, more people. Candice Bergen's always there, which is nice.
Oh, sweet.
I like seeing Candice Bergen.
Yeah, I know.
Great.
Chip, do you want to give your final thought before I do?
I really liked it. This is the kind of thing that I will send around to my various comic creator friends as a great example of comics.
Do they ever read them when you send them along?
Oh, no one's ever written me back on anything. I like to say I have friends in the industry, but I just have their numbers. That's
Are they real?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
David, your final thoughts. We can close out the episode.
Yeah. I asked Chip to go because I was downloading something to double check a point for my final thoughts. I'm very thorough during these podcasts. But there's this thing I think of where some books are just like my kind of BS. Where like it might have like a weird twist or like some kind of dumb hook or something. But it's like so far up my alley that I can't judge it fairly. Like Peter Can and Thunderbolt by like Kieran Gillen and Casper Weingard looks like a Watchmen riff and then turns into this whole other thing by issue 2. And then they're doing Eddie Campbell homages by issue like 4 or 5. Like that's my kind of BS. And I think Goodbye Eri is very much my kind of BS. In that it picks a structure, it does a thing, and it does it like it commits to the bit so hard and so well that there's a ton of different angles to talk about it from. Whether it's like the layout and like how that feels, or what's real and what's not, what characters are real and what's not. I think that it's a great story about grief and, being human. So I'm pro, but I still think I enjoy Look Back a little bit more. I think that hit me harder personally.
Yeah.
But the way this is told is definitely one where I'm like, I'm probably going to be thinking about this for a while.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, it's funny when you mentioned Eddie Campbell on From Hell, I was like thinking a lot about his work over the last little while, and just at the end in terms of short stories that are like graphic novel length short stories. I think I would, if you liked Look Back, if you liked Goodbye Airy, I would actually recommend trying to track down a book called How to Be an Artist, which was Campbell's first full color work that For Second published, and it's about creating art by someone who's worked in comics his whole life in kind of the same way that this is about, this is about using the medium that you're that you're talking about to tell a story about another medium or a larger medium or that sort of thing. It's an interesting book, and it's been a while since I read it. I want to see if I can. I don't know if there's a digital on it, but probably not. It's before there was digital comics. Yeah, if your local library has How to Be an Artist by Eddie Campbell, I definitely recommend checking that out to read. It's has some things to say about art that I think are pretty good. So anyway, yeah, that was our episode on Goodbye Airy by Tatsuki Fujimoto. That was a fun one, guys. We're going to go to the break. We'll be right back with some shout outs. Stay tuned.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Baker's, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Baker's worth it every time. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
And we're back. Hopefully that was a nice advertisement. And if you didn't get an advertisement, hopefully you enjoyed the little stinger of music that our good friends at DADS perform for us in between the break every week.
They actually do those live. Not a lot of people realize that.
Yeah, it's true. It's hard work, but
it's not only hard work, it's hard coordinating with the schedules, and we're all in different time zones.
Yeah.
But glad that's working out for them. Thanks, team. We're doing shout-outs this week. We're not even doing questions and answers. We're doing shout-outs. I think maybe we'll do a question and answer episode at the end of the season this year instead of a wrap-up. I think it'll be fun. So yeah, shout-outs. It's been a while since we've recorded. Everyone must have 1,000 things that they did. Who wants to go first?
I can start with a two-pronged shout-out to give the others more time to think of their own shout-outs.
Oh.
So we read Kamen Rider by Shotaro Ishinomori. Who's a favorite.
Which I loved a lot. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's...
Chip, what did you think?
It was a Mangasplaining mixed pick, but that's normal because four geniuses with such great taste won't always agree on everything. But we did respect kind of the craft and the creativity of the book, I believe. And Shin Kamen Rider is out on Amazon Prime and other streaming sites. I think it's free on Amazon. You might have to pay elsewhere. And it's basically a straight up adaptation of that first story arc. I'm not going to spoil anything or too much from it. But it was a fun time at the movies and incredibly violent in ways that I didn't expect but kind of enjoyed. And
that was my shout out from a few episodes ago, but I saw it in Japanese with no English subtitles. So I'm excited to hear that it's out on Amazon Prime so I can figure out
tons
what it was
of subtitles. You'll totally get your money's worth.
Is it live action or anime?
It's live action. Yeah.
Okay.
It's done by the same Hideaki Anno, who also worked on like Shin Godzilla, worked on this one. What
does Shin mean?
New.
True or new, depending on context.
Okay. Gotcha.
In this case, it basically means ultimate, is how it's being used.
All right.
Like Shinkansen, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or a lot of stations.
Shin Osaka.
Japanese train stations will have Shin next to it because they built the Shinkansen station outside of town so that they can have the high-speed rail running straighter through it. So like Shin Osaka or what's another good one that's on?
Shinokubo.
Anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
Shinokubo, which is on the Chuo. So yeah.
But the second half of my shout out. So Shin Kamen Rider, very good, very violent. There's also a Kamen Rider fan comic called Fighting Storm, which you can get on itch.io. Sorry, itch.io. What an annoying URL, I gotta say.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, it's on this itch.io site where you can download tons of like RPGs, ebooks, things like that. But Alexei Saracenian and an artist named Brian Naughton got together, did a Kamen Rider fan comic, which is kind of the same story as Shin Kamen Rider, despite coming out before. Like, they were very much on the same wavelength of what's it like to be a karate bug man with super strength. You know, when you fight
Karate bug man,
what happens to those people? It's such a good description, right?
Yeah.
I've never thought of it that way, but that's genius.
Yeah. If you like Kamen Rider in general, if you like Shin Kamen Rider, look up Fighting Storm. It's a really good time. It's silent, like there's only sound effects, there's no words. It's pay what you want. I think technically you're not supposed to pay at all because it's like somebody else's copyright, but like give them some money. It's a good time.
Oh,
Cool.
That's a lovely series of shout-outs, David. Deb, what are your shout-outs this week?
Well, I guess one is related to what we just talked about. And one is one that I keep finding manga that I think David will love. And he's like,
All right.
Not quite, but I'm going to keep trying. So the first one is Emanon by Kenji Tsuruta. It's very similar to Goodbye Eri in that it's set in 1967. And this hippie chick meets this young man on a ferry boat to Kagoshima. And what she tells him blows his mind. She tells him that she actually remembers everything from the beginning of life on Earth. And so she kind of like tells him that she's been reborn several times, but not in the way that he expects. It's a very interesting little time. Like it's a kind of a romance, but it's a science fiction. It's very cosmic, but very slice of life. Beautifully drawn. The reason why I bring it up is Dark Horse is finally publishing volume 4 of this 4-volume series after a 3-year hiatus.
Awesome.
So you can now read the entire series. But it's like, as we were talking about Goodbye Eri and about memory and living forever and, young girls who kind of aren't who they think you think, who seem wiser beyond their years, who tell you things that you think, are you shitting me? Emanon is like that, but it's really beautifully drawn. And it was something that I thought, this is something, should I recommend it for the podcast? But I liked it a lot, but I was reluctant to recommend it because it was left hanging. So maybe no.
That's great.
Yeah, great
Cool.
art on that one too. That started as a novel in the 80s, and the illustrator for the novel also does the manga. I like that kind of like long continuity.
Oh, nice.
And I think the other one that I was, let me see if I can find it. Because I bought it off the Kodansha Reader. That's not a plug. It was the easy way to get it. No, not K-Manga. It's the Kodansha Reader, which is something separate. It's like the way you can directly buy from Kodansha.
Okay.
And buy ebooks. I think it's called Tepu.
Oh, I've heard of this one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. The cover looks weird. It didn't catch my eye. And then someone described it on Twitter as, what if the shit-heeled opponent in a fighting manga, in a high school fighting sports manga, was actually the main character?
Yeah,
And
easy win.
it's really neat. It's like a female. She's like super strong, super tall. She can apparently kick anyone's ass without even thinking too hard about it. And then she meets a couple girls who are into MMA. And they want to start an MMA club, and they're like hardworking and they're really genki. And she's like, I hate your enthusiasm.
That sounds like kind of a David moment.
Yeah.
And it's actually really gripping and interesting. And it's girls, but they're not like prissy girls, and they're not like, hi, I'm a guy, but I just happen to have boobs kind of girl, like a lot of American superhero girls are. They're definitely
They've come a long
subtle
way.
complaint.
Yeah.
It's a really good story. I like that. I mean, I finished volume 1 and thought, yeah, I'm down. I'll keep reading.
I was thinking if we do an immortality like episode, we should put To Your Eternity on the list as well.
Yeah, you love that one, eh?
Yeah,
that's
really
that's like that's one of your earliest shoutouts on the podcast, actually.
Mhm.
Was To Your
One
Eternity.
of the few series with like a billion-year time skip.
Whoa.
I could go last, I guess. Chap, as you have changed your name to, Chap Zadirski. What's your shout out this week?
The documentary on Steph Curry, Underrated, which came out on Apple.
Wow.
I am not a sports guy, but I am a sports documentary guy, it turns out. Because it condenses everything into a nice little package for me. I don't have to be super stressed out watching games and watching things for a whole season. I just get someone's life just kind of distilled when they're gonna win at the end, which is fantastic. Yeah, it follows him from being a basketball player as a kid, the son of another NBA player, and making his way up through the NCAA into the NBA, even though he's like got a horrible, debilitating height issue. He's only what, like 6'3", 6'4", something like that.
Gasp!
I know he somehow manages to overcome that to become the 3-point champion of the world. And yeah, it's funny. Like I watched it only because like I went to the first Raptors game against the Warriors.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Because I just happened to know. Have I told you guys this before? We're like on.
Is this going to make me mad?
Yeah. So when I was doing Sex Criminals, the series with Fraction, our editor was a guy named Tommy K. That's all I knew him as, a Tommy K. And I thought it was just like an old friend of Matt's or whatever. And he just kind of did this on the side of his day job. Mm-hmm. And he just wanted like comps of the book. I'm like, oh, sure. We just need a proofreader really for this. That's fine. And then like game 1 of like the Raptors versus Golden State Warriors, like Tommy K reaches out to me. He's like, hey, I'm going to be in town. I'm like, oh, that's cool. What's up? He's like, oh, I'm an executive producer at ESPN. Do you want do you want tickets to game 1? I'm like, what?
What? Crazy.
So I go. I take one of my good friends who's like a huge Raptors fan, and they put us like, just got the star treatment. It was amazing. Like they put us in the friends and family section. So I sat next to Steph Curry's brother and like his family.
Whoa.
Yeah,
which is also weird when you're cheering for the other team.
Oh, amazing.
Before the game, I got to stand like by the court and watch Steph Curry practice 3-pointers. And I'm just
That's
like,
awesome.
this is amazing. And I got to be in like the ESPN truck and to see like the live feeds and how they cut everything. And I'm just like,
wow.
this is unbelievable. So I got to go to like 2 of the games of that series with buddies who are big Raptors fans. And it was like insanely exciting. But I always remember that like Steph Curry was like unbelievable. I'm like, oh man, that guy, that's something else. I think at the time I knew like you and Bronwyn maybe used to go to the Warriors games together.
And Jonathan Chan too.
Jonathan Chan, yeah.
Warriors tickets. So those are my Image Comics former. We all left Image a while ago. But for a while, Warriors tickets, we could just decide to go at like 4:30 on an afternoon at work.
Yeah.
Just get on the train and go. And we did that dozens of times over the years. Like, we've been to so many Warriors games, but never to like, we never got to sit next to Seth.
I know. I felt bad, like it was wasted on me just by virtue of like my editor happened to be executive producer at ESPN.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I do think Underrated is a ludicrous title for his documentary, though.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, but it's a. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's a great documentary. It's really tugs at the heartstrings by the end. Yeah.
For the non-sports fans and in our listening audience, it's sort of like if there was a Superman biography called "Is He Good Enough?" It's like, no, like, he's obviously good enough. Like, come on.
I love that. I'm pitching that to DC.
Yeah.
Is he good enough?
That's pretty good. Well, that sounds lovely. My shout out has no personal connection, but I went and saw Barbie. It was a lot of fun. I recommend the Barbie movie. Unless you're a man, in which case, do not go watch it. Very soul destroying. No, just kidding. No, I liked it, and I was only like a tiny bit spoiled for me, but there was huge spoilers that were posted online. This will come out like months after it's in theaters. So yeah, someone posted I'm Knuff, which is one of the spoilers at the end of the movie, which was really funny. So
great. I haven't seen it yet, but yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Are you going to go see Barbie?
Yeah, of course I'm going to go see Barbie.
In theaters?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. Well, then I've spoiled a very funny joke for you.
To get space from the story, from the spoiler for you. I
really?
I didn't know it was like a metafictional thing. I thought it was going to be like the Flintstones movie from the 90s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And now I kind of want that movie with the same cast.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever see Addams Family? Because I always think of Addams Family as my go-to as like the best version of the Flintstones type movie.
That
where
was
it's like,
the best.
Yeah. We're setting it for real. Like we're treating this 100%
No,
real.
the best one is the Brady Bunch movie.
Brady Bunch movie.
It's so good. I saw it again in theaters just before the pandemic, and like it's so funny.
We've talked about Brady Bunch on here, which is hilarious that this is our second go round on the Brady Bunch movie.
It's actually our third because I watched it that weekend and then I think I shouted it out.
Oh, right. And we talked about it the next week. Right. Yeah, sorry, they're both 10 out of 10. I appreciate, like, I like the Brady Bunch movie as well, but I just rewatched Addams Family and Addams Family Values on a plane, and I was just like, oh my God, this movie is just killing me. Like, I was, it's one of those things where you're on a plane and you're laughing, and then you realize you're on a plane and you're trying to hold in the laughs, and it's getting worse because you're just vibrating weirdly, like you're maybe throwing up into your hand. So yeah, Addams Family movie, Addams Family Values is actually surprisingly good too. As a second movie, still pretty good. Brady Bunch sequel, a very Brady sequel, also very good too. Both of them are just great. So
many
third
shout-outs
consecutive shout out for the Brady Bunch movie. And Barbie is actually totally good, and especially we're seeing on the big screen. Some of the shots are awesome.
Cool.
Really, really good. They did some amazing work with the sets. So this has been an episode of Mangasplaining. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back again, hopefully next week, with another manga. Stay tuned. This has been Mangasplaining, episode number 105, Goodbye Eri by Tatsuki Fujimoto. Thanks for listening. For our next episode, we'll be discussing the manga Enial and Duial by Kamumi Shirahama. Want to pick up a copy? Consider supporting our local comic and manga specialty shop. Find one near you at comicshoplocator.com, or check out your local library for print and digital lending options. You can also follow along with our complete reading list and show notes at mangasplaining.com, and check out our newsletter and digital publishing endeavor at mangasplainingextra.com. Thanks to DADS for their musical accompaniment this episode.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Baker's, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Baker's worth it every time. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.